Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow. In today's episode, it's a really first of a series of episodes. I'm going to try to attempt to do something that I've not done before, but I always had the idea of, and that is to do a review on some written work about anime. Okay, so people have been using anime to write essays, to write like theses and documents, and obviously homework assignments and that kind of stuff about anime. And so in this episode is going to be a start of a long chain of episodes because obviously to fully do an analysis on a written work, it may require me several episodes to go over different points and that kind of stuff. But um, this is one of these sort of rare situations I get to do this. So before I begin and talk about this, I want to remind people to go down below, click like, and click subscribe. Again, any sort of comments and things that you would write down does help the YouTube algorithm. So at least hitting that like definitely does really help. So do please do that. Again, if you want to support me financially, I do have the super thanks button available, as well as the PayPal and Patreon links. Again, I've now added a little more content to the Patreon. So again, if people who are interested in my new ebook that's out, I've now added video versions of that available now. Again, so again, you can go to the Patreon, you can log in for free, and again, I've made it so that any of the paid accounts, has access to that first ebook for free, and the video version you get a massive discount on it as well. So in case you would like to get a video version of the ebook, okay, as well as the audiobook as well. So do check that out. Link is below. Okay, so as I said in this episode, I'm going to be going through and doing analysis on these written pieces of work. So people have obviously submitted either thesis documents or maybe their homework assignments or that's for some of the writing, creative writing, or in this case it's whatever studies that they happen to be doing. Okay, and it uses a lot of references to anime, and part of the reason why I made this this channel is to inform people and to record and document history, of this age of anime that we've had in North America. And a lot of people who are doing this kind of research and that kind of stuff are having problems finding actual sources and actual information in regards to this era of anime. Okay, and and I've seen it from people from Crunchyroll and people from various different magazines and that kind of stuff are all interviewing different people and are trying to find information about the origins of how anime got this way. So in today's episode, I've come across a piece of writing. Okay, it does have this sort of a political sort of type of leaning towards it. Okay, and again, I don't want to talk politics and that kind of stuff, and most people don't really care, especially on this particular part of the channel, because my emphasis is on this again documenting a time period in our history that that transpired and isn't well documented. Not very many people have written too many articles and that kind of stuff about it, and not too many people, especially from this particular era, have basically documented what exactly has gone on in this thing. And so what ends up happening is people tend to rely on things like Google and whatnot to write their essays and to get confirmation bias on their particular works. And this is particularly poor when Google does not show results for things that happened in the 1990s or the 1980s, right? They actually need some people, some interviews, and that kind of stuff to be made. And that's, primarily one of the main functions of my channel here is to provide this documentation, to show you pictures, to, tell you stories and accounts, show you merchandise and things that came from that and how we came across it, getting this stuff, what this means, tie in things that happen in anime with things that are happening in real life. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to do with that. So again, this isn't a typical type of episode, and the way that I'm tackling this episode is maybe a little bit strange and very very long. Okay, but I assure you, even though we are touching a little bit on politics, do not pay attention to it too much because I won't delve too deeply into it. Okay, I'll touch on it, but I won't really get into why what particular things that happen on that, because there's a lot of factors and that kind of stuff, and that's not what this particular channel is really about to. But what I want to address, and which is the most important thing, is when people do research, okay, and they go and try to find information that supports their research, okay, and they use Google and that kind of stuff, this is confirmation bias. The fact that you're specifically looking for information and looking for essentially yes men, okay, people that will say yes to whatever you say, to basically confirm what you're writing. And of course, this is really poor scientific method, right? And since the topic is anime, I want to be this person that comes in and says, okay, using my own accounts, my own and whatever evidence and documentations and that kind of stuff, fan letters and newsletters, merchandise, art books, or whatever that happens to be, that I have available as a historic archive. I want to present it to you and tell my story in helping you understand and build this picture, the story. If you want to, kind of have a vision that's not just in front of you but around you, right? What are all the other factors that transcribe around you? So when I describe what the environment of, let's say, an anime convention in 1991, or some of the funny stories and conflicts and cosplay and that kind of stuff that happened at Comic-Con in '89. Okay, I want to not only tell you the story, I want to see if I can get you some pictures. I want to give you some context of why this is this particular thing happened. Was there any other things happening at the con that might have transpired? What about any sort of popular culture things that were also happening, or news stories that was happening at that particular time that has a significance of why this sort of thing occurred in anime? And this is what I want to present. Okay, this is the history part and the accounting part, and of course the recording of and documentating of this kind of history. Because as I said, um, we're all getting older, okay, and if we don't tell our story, if we don't get it, told in and documented, then we may become people like Carl Masek, Don Yee, Torrance Smith, all these people who are pivotal members of the anime community, but they're no longer around anymore, and they can't tell their story, and and all the things, whether or not good, bad, conflicts, their opinions on stuff, on how they handled things, and all the inside stories that we can't find on Google, and people didn't post on any sort of form, gets lost. Okay, that part of history is lost, and until someone comes through and documents it, maybe brings out some receipts and brings out some scripts or things of basically historical importance, okay, like these anime artifacts, if you will, okay, um, you know their story will never be fully, as I said, fully appreciated and fully understood, and then it'll be just basically left for interpretation. And one good example I just did a few episodes ago is the story of the most mysterious song on the internet. Okay, the mere fact that it is highly possible that most members of the band who wrote that song are no longer around. Even the producer that probably made that thing is probably, maybe, possibly no longer around. And with that, it may be very impossible to find out who exactly wrote that song and where it came from and that kind of stuff. And it may be just one of those untold, basically unsolved mysteries, right? And in this era, at this particular time, there should be no excuse for these untold mysteries or unsolved unresolved and unsolved anime things in history. Because as I said, we are still very, very young. As I said, we have entered a year of 40 years of anime in North America here. We should be able to have and document our own history and be able to do that, because as I said, we're not that old yet. Not that old yet, so let's get that. Okay, so anyway, I apologize for such a long opening. But yes, so here we're going to be in. I'm going to break this up into smaller episodes, and I'm going to kind of spread them out so that it's more digestible, and people can think about and do the different things rather than one big, huge 5-hour, 6-hour long video. Okay, so I'll break it up for you. All right. So without further delay, let's begin. Moreover, one contributor to the old school otaku form, so this is a, kind of the replacement for rec.arts.anime, like the old fashioned PHBBS type of forms, right? He recalls that the early anime fandom, most of the translators they knew at that time were all women, but the contributions seemed to be somewhat overlooked after all these years. It's hard to say, because what ended up happening is that, sure, okay, if you look at an era of time, okay, let's say before 1990, okay, a lot of the material that was probably out there, okay, some rough translation, that kind of stuff, yeah, probably were done, by the fans, okay, so non-professionally, and maybe a lot of that kind of stuff came from maybe possibly some females, sort of editors, that kind of stuff, especially maybe into the early section when Animage and Animedia and that kind of stuff sort of kind of came around. Okay, sure, maybe in there, but when we go into the 90s, things really started to step up. Okay. So definitely, most of the time when we got into the fan subbing and that kind of stuff, that kicked into high gear. Okay, so all of a sudden, the majority of the translators that worked on stuff, for Arctic Animation, as I said, we did like about 1,000 episodes, and or movies and OVAs, right? Like we got 1,000 titles, right? The majority of them are done by male. Okay, I can name Dan Cougar. That was done by Anna Exter. Okay, she did the translation for all the TV series, the movies, and even the music videos and that kind of stuff. And matter of fact, I already told the story. She actually came to my house to time and do God Bless Dan Cougar, like what was Dan Cougar? No, she did Requiem for Victims. Okay, she came over and she timed out herself Requiem for Victims, and she spent all night. I mean, literally, probably 24 hours on the computer, dealing with that 2-hour movie. Okay, she sat on the computer literally continually to do that. Okay, I know that parts of Borgman, Heavy Metal Elgime, Double Zeta Gundam. Okay, they were half of the translators that I got were probably doing it from the Chinese translations that were done by women. Okay, and maybe the other half done by males. I think Shurato was half and half. Because I basically just had 4 episodes and said, hey, it takes about an hour to go through one VCD or one sort of thing of things, and I pay people like $50, and most people have it done in an hour, right? So it was actually pretty good. It's actually a pretty good page. You just got to sit there for just translating things from basically a VCD or a tape cassette onto a thing, and so it was pretty good, because I mean, even when I was working at Radio Shack, right? I think I was only getting paid $8 an hour, $10 an hour, okay, at most.
like nothing. Okay, but I remember in the early years, $50 to do an hour's worth of work. So I had people clamoring over that kind of stuff, and I'm sure as it progressed into the 90s, I'd have to say it swung the other way around. So obviously, this person that they didn't name who she was quoting, but the article's there. It's almost like 17 pages of posts in that particular thread. So I mean, it's a lot of reading to go through. But yeah, maybe the other person did make a reference of the time period, right? But obviously, yeah, if you look at the volume of stuff that got translated out there, obviously Viz. Trish did a lot of work with Viz, but there's no mention to what was done by Animiego, and there's no mention of what was done by Central Park Media, AD Vision. We don't know what they were doing, right? I know Anna Extra did a lot of stuff with Pioneer, like she did Saber Marionette J, Trigon and that kind of stuff. So she did a lot of that kind of stuff, right? Obviously, there's lots of people doing English translations and dub work translations and that stuff for all the Dragon Balls and Ranma and Sailor Moon and that kind of stuff up at Ocean Studios here in Vancouver. That became the big major English dubbing studio up here. So obviously, lots of those translators. No, I don't really know whether or not they're male or female, but I'm sure that there could have been a lot of stuff going on there too, right? So. I would have to say that it was basically whoever was available. I don't think the females are were any different than the males, right? It's in the end it's a job, right? It's a paying job, right? So, so I don't think there's any too much I won't put too much emphasis on that. But yes, I agree. Maybe in the very early years. Maybe more of the translations came from like female translators. It's it really depends, but definitely for most of the Arctic stuff, English, English from Japanese came from male translators, and I'd say probably more than half of them came from Daisuke. Well, see, that is right away complete ignorance, right? I explained earlier. Carl Masick and Trish Trudeau got extremely a lot of hate. Okay, heavily criticized, shall we say, right? Because of her work at Viz, right? Because people didn't like her translations. She had the attitude of it's my way or the highway. My translation goes, and because I understand Japanese, it's I'm right. Okay, and if people complain that hey, Ronin-san shouldn't have been translated to Mr. Dropout, and people want to question her on that, then she gets criticized, and it's like stop screwing around with the anime, and that's exactly what happens. Carl Masick did the exact same thing. When you take those three things of Macross, Southern Cross, and Mospeada, and try to invent this thing called this thing and put it together and call it Robotech and try to invent this thing called it's the protoculture. Yes, at the beginning it's some sort of alien culture thing, and then somehow by the second season where you go to Southern Cross, this protoculture is now some sort of energy source or something that the Robotech masters, whatever, are coming to get, and then by the end the Invid are coming after for the protoculture, and like what the heck, right? I mean, I get it. He's trying to release it, but hey, this is why he's heavily criticized, right? And here you go, you write saying, oh, Trish Ledoux got heavily criticized, but no, Carl Masick didn't. Obviously, you didn't do enough research on Carl Masick, because his name is not a female name, so you didn't type it into the Google and try to say, how many hits do I get for Carl Masick? You didn't even bother typing Carl Masick and actually see that, he got heavily flamed for that. He got heavily criticized for doing the Sentinels, Robotech Sentinels movie where they try to chop up Megazone 23, the Robotech movie. Oh my God, that was a disaster. No, you didn't find any of that stuff. Nope. But no, you conveniently kind of skip that part. And this is why when you write some kind of article like this, you have no clue, where these names and where the significance of these events that sort of happened. Do you write silly stuff like this? In conclusion, the trajectory of this article and the negative networks that anime fandom it analyzes should offer. I love that word. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, maybe, possibly. Maybe if the asteroid came, yeah, sure, would offer a clear answer. Okay, well, love to use the word, should, and then offer a clear answer. So, I mean, you should theoretically offer something very clear, but does it? Are you not using the appropriate language? I mean, you've been word policing all the time. It should be, it does show a clear, and and here is why it is clear. And I have provided the evidence that links it between these two because it is clear, right? But it isn't. You are choosing an event. Okay, Paul Gossamer's team felt it enabled in 2021 to accompany a video depicting, which is basically, it was Attack on Titans, okay, with a tweet that says, any anime fans out there, okay? Now, of course, they could have used something else. I mean, there's many other different means out there. They could have used Star Wars, maybe a bunch of stormtroopers right in there, firing their things, or lightsabers or whatever. And they could have just 3D donned the face as always, right? There was also footage of ATVs and motorcycles in there. Why didn't they go after the motorcycle community, right? Because that was also included in there, right? Why didn't they go after? Why don't you go after all those Star Wars memes that come out there? Oh, right, because Kathleen Kennedy is already at the head of Star Wars, ruining that franchise already for you. That's right. So yes, you just happen to say, okay, this event has happened, and you're going to try to say, oh yeah, okay, this is all because it started from a news group that happened 30 years ago. So those people that were making that stuff, they've been perpetuating and eliminating women and that stuff from the spaces and that kind of stuff. Yet, if you go to, for example, Anime Expo or let's say San Diego Comic-Con, and you look at the convention floor, do we see an absence of women? Do we see 95% men and only 5% women? No, it's wrong. Absolutely, that's wrong. So obviously you haven't clearly answered the question. You haven't clearly shown how negative networks in fandom show that women are being excluded and being forgotten about and all that kind of stuff. When you definitely go to an anime convention like Anime Expo, or even I've got footage from the anime Matsuri that we just had last month, and it's like, well, there seems to be lots of females. I'd probably argue that the majority, actually, over 50%, is in the female side. So what sort of erasing and negative networking are you referring to? Maybe you got that wrong. Maybe it's positive. If it was so negative, why is the numbers of female fans obviously so much larger? Could it possibly be that it's only on the online forums? And you just haven't followed that, or maybe possibly because what happens online doesn't actually translate to real life, right? Maybe all these options are possibilities. Maybe all these shouldas. Maybe all these couldas. But you didn't follow those, did you? You didn't have any sort of links to that, and your answer is not clear. So what you're basically proposing in this article is a coulda. A coulda, shoulda, woulda. Maybe it is, maybe not. No scientific method, no data, no analysis. You don't pass using Carl Sagan's baloney detector. You didn't, successfully argued those particular points, presented evidence, present replicable results. Okay, and as Tice the Grass has also pointed out, you're using cognitive bias. Okay, by using affirmation bias using a search engine, and you admitted that all you grabbed stuff is from Google. All your research has all been done by Google. Anime fan identity has long been steadily codified as straight cisgender male. Okay, so you're saying that the majority of the anime fans were male, and arguably speaking, yeah, that's probably correct, statistically speaking. I mean, again, without really doing polling and that kind of stuff and whatnot, but definitely from all the various different meetings that we've had, and if I bet you if I pulled out my membership book, which I do actually have a copy of, and I probably would go through and statistically separate male and female, I'm probably pretty sure that a large majority would be obviously male, and that's 100% true. They're embedded within women exclusionary practices. Okay, so if so embedded, okay, so all these all these men, okay, are have this agenda to exclude women from anime, then explain why after all this time we have this explosion in the anime market, and we have arguably, I said if we did the statistics on, let's say, Anime Expo, or Anime America, or maybe recently we had Anime Revolution, if the someone over there would go through and break down the statistics of how many people came in through the doors and paid for tickets and went to the convention, I'd argue that it's not 95% men and 5% women. I'd argue it's probably 55, maybe 60% women and 45% men, probably, somewhere in there. I think it's a pretty even split all the way around, and just maybe pushing a little bit more on the women's side, just because of all the cosplay and that kind of stuff. I would imagine that would be probably the split. You could probably do things like, let's look at all the if you type in the word cosplay on let's say TikTok or something, see how many pages come up. I'd probably argue that the majority of them are female cosplayers when you type in that. So where is this, exclusionary practice? Okay, this negative networking. Well, it seems it's not blocking these women from occurring. 30 years later, obviously it's the distribution's pretty even. Yeah. So what are you talking about? As this paper shows, anime fandom is closely entwined with the misogynistic ideologies, which are integral and an inseparable part of its online history. So basically, what you're saying is, as this paper shows, also this piece of tripe that you've written here, the anime fandom, has this, anti-female ideology. Okay. And it has to be ingrained in the fandom, so much so you can't separate this of its online history. Okay, so you can't separate this male woman hating kind of thing, right? Rec.arts.anime users have established a powerful pre-discourse that are now mobilized in not only memic culture, but in contemporary communications from the far right politicians as recruiting strategies or rallying calls. Really? So you've gone and gone on to say that, okay, yeah, not only has these users, okay, these 95%, maybe 5, whatever percent men out of this rec.arts.anime, this very narrow band of nerdy frat boys and that kind of stuff from colleges, and these high-tech computer nerds, okay, as you say, or like you like to refer to as incels, if you will, okay, have established a powerful discourse, powerful, so powerful that the 1 in 1,000 messages that come out that wield so much strength and have so much ability to control the culture from there forth, right? After they, the news group went, and down like the Titanic in 96, 97, 98, right? Okay, yeah, right. Okay, sure. That's powerful, yes. But of course, you failed to mention that, to realize that, because you're saying is not only in memic culture, okay, meaning that the Darwinism effect, it creates content or spreadable media that if it's holds some importance, it will perpetuate, and if it doesn't, it dies away. So you're saying that the culture is of such male misogyny and that kind of stuff and all this all these bad things that it somehow has reached the market and has people following it and believe in it and find value in it, that it moves forward. Yet things that of your thought, okay, that are not of that particular nature, okay, in Darwin sort of theory, evolutionary theory, if it is the weaker, if it's the less known and less paid attention to, it withers and dies, and because it is not of the same caliber of content, the strongest survive and the weakest perish. That is Darwin theory for evolution, right? But not only does that, the evolution evolves. The entity, the mimic entity, evolves, as well as the culture evolves. That's something that you didn't mention here, okay? But you're saying that, yes, that sort of thing, transpires from that news group into the future. But we've already noticed in your letter, you did not provide that path. You did not explain the technical movement of that. You did not provide the media in which that transports from that news group to modern day, because a lot of modern day things and entities like Facebook, even things like TikTok and that kind of stuff didn't exist back then, right? The internet, in terms of web pages and that kind of stuff, didn't exist back then. So what are you talking about then, right? You didn't prove a link, any sort of connection between what happened 30 years ago to what is now. And then you go, okay, no, we are also talking about contemporary communications from the far-right politicians as recruiting strategies or rallying calls. So you're saying that politicians back in 1995, 96, right, they were going to the internet trying to find people to vote for them and to basically, try to get them to come together and do protests and that kind of stuff in 1996. Really? Is that what it is? Oh, really now? Okay. So, obviously you didn't do enough Google, did you? Because look who was assigned president in 1994. Oh, it's Bill Clinton. He's a Democrat, and that's on the left. Huh. Yeah, sure. Those politicians, sure did a really good job with those recruiting strategies and those rallying calls, and especially when the Democrats won. Oh boy. And then we go on. Yeah, pretty much all through the 90s, it was Bill Clinton. From 1993 to the year 2000, that was all Bill Clinton and the Democrats. Wow, geez, that must have been some very successful far right politicians doing that recruiting of that of the people off of rec.arts.anime, getting all those right wing anime fans to vote for the Democrats. Yep, that sure worked out really well, didn't it? Mm-hmm. So I am hoping that this paper, written as a counter-history and a critique of the online anime fans and negative networks from the perspective of a female anime fan, can join earlier voices of dissonance and detailing the reality of women's systematic marginalization within these online spaces. Well, okay, so there you go. So now you're getting this, basically critique. Okay, so you asked for critique. All right, you getting critique now. Um, you know, written as a counter history. So instead of taking random messages and that kind of stuff and whatnot from a news group and basically writing a piece of tripe, just using confirmation bias to push your agenda, why not take that effort and actually do things like interview people that were in that era? So why not get an interview with Trish Ledoux and get her to say and get her record and document her point of view. Okay? Get it out there. Right? Because obviously what you've done is you've only basically you've only interpreted a story and put your twist and your sort of angle, motive, onto that story. And one of the things I really didn't want to do in when doing my channel, and I was I try to be very careful in doing that, is that I want to only speak from my experience. Okay, I don't really want to basically read what someone else has written and say that is what had happened. Okay, if I saw something happen, or I agree with how things progressed, as far as I can tell from from an outsider, right? So for example, if some fan politics happened in Anime Expo, which it did, okay, and a lot of conflict happened in the CFO, which I agree. Okay, now the exact things of what exactly happened behind the closed doors and the stuff that wasn't revealed, I can't speak of because I don't know exactly what exactly happened. But instead of making assumptions and hope, coulda, woulda, shoulda, and I think and I argue that, okay, why don't you take all that energy and interview these people that are still alive, okay, and find out from them and ask questions to them exactly what happened. Get their side of the story, and then find someone from the other side and see if they also agree or disagree with the way the events happened. Find the Sylvia woman, interview her, okay? Get her point of view. Ask her these same questions. Did you feel marginalized? Did you do that? Did you think that was a good idea to do that? What gave you the initiative to think that this was going to be that? Did you not think something was going to happen? Or did you expect everyone to be appreciative of these sort of things? What was on your mind at that time? Why not ask her those kind of questions instead of assuming, I would like to argue. I'm going to take someone else's, interpretation and put it into mine as if it was fact. Okay? That is something that I didn't want to really do, and I've tried very hard in this on my channel not to put words into people's mouths. I'd much rather the real people who have experienced it, to come up with their own experiences and what they've heard, what they knew about, and on all this kind of stuff at the time when they experienced it. Okay, so when I go down to San Diego Comic Con, and when I do things for like Anime Expo and Anime America and that kind of stuff, because I said when I went to those conventions, and I performed every single role that you can be. I went as a regular fan. I went as an exhibitor, right, a guest. Okay, I went in one year and did volunteer. I was part of the volunteer corps. I basically sat in the ops room, filled with everybody else's stuff and whatnot, and doing errands, running prizes from here to the grand ceremonies and all that stuff. I did that. I can testify and say what happened and what I heard, what I saw, what stuff was going on, what kind of stuff that was in that ops room, like, because a lot of people's personal belongings were sort of sprayed out all over and stacks all over the room. And I was able to see some of the stuff. I was able to look at some of the stuff because it was just all over. People were kind of going, "Hey, check out this manga, check out this doujinshi," and some of the stuff was just the nastiest stuff out there. But hey, it was there, right? And I can attest to that, all right? So why not, instead of sitting here behind Google, in your nice comfy little seat, and sitting here just hoping that Google will do all the work for you, why not go out and seek out the truth? Why not actually go and get some of these interviews done and get these documented? Okay, so instead of making your quote counter history, why don't you actually document the actual history? Okay, sure, put your little feminist twist to it if you want or whatever. Angle the questions a little bit, but at least get these words coming out of Trish Lado's mouth. Get these words coming out of all those female people that you listed on the list. Anna Exter, she's in Ontario there. Why don't you get in touch with her and make an interview with her? Ask her how much translation she's done. Ask her about Dan Cougar. Okay, she'll tell you, and I can tell you. As I said, she spent literally an entire day, virtually an entire weekend that time to do the Dan Cougar fan subs. Okay. That is what you should be doing. You should be, producing the history, documenting the history, not sitting here trying to change the history or indeed erase history. Okay, and and you keep producing this. Oh, negative networks in the perspective of the anime field. Yeah, okay. So you, the anime fan, are projecting negative networking. Okay. And what you do is you're going to try to, consolidate all this dissent and all these problems that women have about online spaces. Well, yeah, that was what happened in the past. But now, everybody, and as I commented, one of the things that technology has done, it has given the power of each individual user, each individual person, the ability to be ground zero. So if you want to be influential and do something useful, why don't you become ground zero? Why don't you produce spreadable media, okay, that's actually useful content? You even used the research and the methodology and the theory of mimic. Okay, that is like Darwin evolution. Why don't you start producing content and materials that people will find interesting and will find informative and actual content that they will learn and work with, so that it will, as I said, perpetuate and spread and become more viral and go around, right? Rather than writing something like this, okay, you write, critique the online anime fandom's negative networks. Okay, well, if that's what you want to do and that kind of stuff, okay, why don't you take matters in your own hands, right? Technology has basically made it so that each individual person can be ground zero. You can create your own spreadable media, okay? And using your own words of mimic theory, okay? And this whole entire thing of spreadable media. Why don't you produce content that people actually want to, enjoy and want to listen to and want to actually find some useful, pieces to it? Okay, rather than this tripe of coming off as some sort of scientific paper with some sort of scientific basis, quoting things out of the blue, horrible resources, unable to tie things together, all based off of things that you found on history and lazy research off of Google. Okay, so if you want some critique, yeah, stop doing this BS. Okay. If you want to do something that's useful, why not As I said, and you're so concerned about this history and trying to counter the narrative of history, or this sort of deletion of women, okay, and whatnot. Okay, why don't you do something useful, like actually interviewing these women and actually getting and documenting all their experiences. Interview Lorraine Whale, interview Trish Ledoux, interview De Silva, okay? Interview all those CFO people, Anime Hashin, Lorraine Savage, okay? Pam Buck, okay? Anna Extra, as I said, she's somewhere in Ontario. Go get in touch with her. Why not pull all these very famous and predominant women things that you gloat over in your essay here? Why not go over those people and do a huge, long, documented podcast or interview, or whatever, TikTok or whatever you want there? Because as I said, you have full control over that. Okay, no one's marginalizing you. No one's using negative, networking, because you are ground zero. You create that content yourself. Okay, so why not do that? Find and get those people. Get their story and put it on the internet so that everyone knows what their side of the story is. That now will then become the definitive, story and recourse that now becomes the next thing that people can find. Because you even said in your own document, I could not find any information on Lorraine White or Pam Buck or anything like that. Like there's just no information on there. Or Anne Sinclair. Why not? Why would you not have any information on that stuff on there? Why cannot Google not find it? Well, why don't you do something about it, right? Why not, instead of trying to write the counter history, a history that doesn't exist? Okay, no one's documenting that history, so you can't make a counter history for a history that hasn't even been documented yet. So why don't you do something useful and document that history and get that out there? Get those interviews. So then next time, maybe when someone as lazy as you are looking and trying to Google something, maybe then Google will actually find something. It'll find, hey, here's an article or here's an interview that someone did with Trish Ledoux talking about how what happened to her when she was at Viz, and how what all this stuff that happened there. Get her side of the story instead of making it up or trying to make assumptions of things of what happened, or trying to put words in her mouth and everyone else's mouth. Okay? That's my only suggestion. That's my critique. Okay? You're trying to pass this off as some sort of, someone's thesis or some sort of scientific document, and really, you gotta know what scientific form is. I don't know if you learned this from gender studies or you actually took science courses on that. I have no idea. But the way this is presented is absolutely bunk. Okay, so as I said, we can all do better, and we all have, in this case, a similar mission. Mine is the fact that yes, I lived through this era. I actually was a very strong participant in this, bringing anime to North America. You Google search my name and anime, a lot of it shows up. Okay? And that's how I want it. That's what I was trying to do. I'm trying to make it so that my name and my stories and that kind of stuff are available for the next generation, and to either analyze, study, talk about, and to learn when they go back and see how things were back in the 90s, in the 80s, right? Before we have all this social media and all this kind of stuff. Because as I said, it's being lost. And every single person, that no longer is with us, that's part of the story that we can no longer tell. Pen pal, Don Yee, I was particularly touched when he was, because I said, I remember first couple times I went down to, the San Diego Comic, I was, like I said, I was a noob. But here he is, a very high-profile artist. He wrote he did a lot of stuff in the art of Robotech. But he was so approachable. He was such a nice guy. I spent an hour or two just sitting on the convention floor at Comic-Con, talking to him while he was, drawing pictures and that kind of stuff. I offered him a Coke. Because one of the things that I remember we brought down from Canada was a can of Canadian Coke. It basically still used cane sugar as opposed to the refined corn, like sugar made from cane from corn. Okay, because that was the new policy from U.S. farms, right? But yeah, it had a different taste. It was way sweeter, and he was really surprised. But that's one of the things that we talked about. We weren't talking about negative networking and all this other garbage that you said. No, we were just talking talking about life. We're talking about anime. Talking what our favorite things are, what we plan to do. Asked him if he's got any new projects that he's working on, and any sketches and that kind of stuff. And whatnot. He's a really down to earth person. And that's what happens when you go into the real world and meet real people and do things like that. Not hide behind your computer, behind Google. Okay? Because if you do that, you may as well be in the basement, sitting at your computer all the time, growing and gaining weight, and basically, being one of these incels, or if you want to make yourself a femcel, okay, whatever. That's essentially what you're doing. Get out there, talk to people, know your fandom. Okay, those are my suggestions. All right, take it as you will. That's my offering of help, and how you can actually help the anime community. If you're such an anime fan and you want to promote some sort of change, maybe that's something what you should be probably doing.
Thank you for sticking along and basically staying with it for this long. I really appreciate that. I said again, this is not typical content that I like, that I like to to do, and but I think it's very interesting. Not so much for the topic or whatever of the particular essay here, okay? Because I don't, that's probably, that's, politics and that kind of stuff is something I don't want to get into on this particular channel. But again, the importance of is correctly documenting events that happened in the past, especially in this very important golden era part of anime, and making and setting the record straight. You can make your own interpretations, and as when I remember when I took when I was on jury duty, okay, someone made a very prolific statement, okay, which really shaped the way how I think and interpret things. And this is what he said. You can choose to not believe, partially believe, total believe, none, some, or all of the evidence. Okay? So think about that. You can either, and this is it, you've provided 6 different possibilities for one particular type of outcome. So if someone presents you a piece of information, you can choose to 0% believe none of it. Okay, like you have no confidence in it. You can have some belief or some particular confidence of some level, or you can be totally invested in believing this thing. Okay, but also you can also choose to believe none of the evidence. So, if multiple pieces or one piece of evidence that has different facets of it, you can choose to believe none of that. Maybe some parts of the evidence you deem credible and you will believe some parts of that. Or you trust the evidence, okay, so you fully believe that this evidence is 100% all parts of the evidence, so all the evidence as a whole, and you can choose to believe none of it, some of it, or all of it. And you can choose what level you believe it to, whether or not you just decide to 100% with or 0% confidence in any parts of that, partial confidence in 0 to all of it, or 100% confidence in none or all of it. Okay? Seems kind of confusing, but at the same time, it really resonated with me about how you would learn to interpret things, and take the parts that you want to, that you feel credible, okay, and then you can analyze that using critical thinking to determine whether or not you wish to add this to your base of knowledge, or disregard it as just total fluff, or maybe something in the middle. Partially you agree with certain parts, you don't agree with certain parts, you feel fuzzy about certain parts, but you're confident that the evidence is actually true, but you're not really sure. Well, that's so it handles all the different gray zones, both positively on that. So again,
the goal here is to train your mind how to see the world differently, how to question what others say. I've come to realize that there are 3 categories of truth: personal truth, political truths, and the objective truths that shape our understanding of the universe. The interesting thing about an objective truth is that it's true no matter what. Imagine that.
that's just something one story I like to reflect on. But again, we have more episodes of this. This is a fairly long essay, but as I said, I'll split up the episodes and have more of that again. So thank you for staying on this long. But again, don't be turned off by the fact of the topic that this is about. Because I'm not going to try to cover the politics and that kind of stuff a little bit. I'll touch on it a little bit just because I have to. But for the most part, I want to stick to the history. All right. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next episode. So until next time, I will see you again.